All right, so glad to see you folks today. I want to continue with Joystealers. We just really did a deep dive into the scriptures, talked about 43 Bible verses about joy last week, including sing for joy. I want to talk this morning about 5 fears that will steal our joy. And then in the next session where I speak, we'll talk about 5 habits that steal our joy. But today it's 5 fears that will steal our joy. First, let's look at about 3 Bible passages. Of course, the one she mentioned, the joy of the Lord is our strength. So we need to praise, to thank, to give, to sing, to have joy, rejoice. And then it says, stay alert. Watch out for your great enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. One of the things he wants to devour is your joy, because if the joy of the Lord is our strength and he takes away our joy, we're weak. We're easily discouraged and want to quit. So we're looking out for the evil one who wants to steal our joy. And then it says in Proverbs, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. And if your heart is not full of joy, your life goes in that direction. If it is full of joy, it goes in that good direction. 5 fears that will steal our joy. The first one is the fear of failure. The fear of failure. We're afraid to fail. We're afraid to look bad. We're afraid to look dumb. We're afraid to be embarrassed. We don't want to mess up. And so we're afraid of failure. In Matthew 25, Jesus tells the parable of the talents. And he says he went and gave to 3 of his servants, the master did, talents. Now, talents in that day was a weight of money, but it means more than that. And he gave one 5, and the guy went out and he invested wisely, and he brought back, he gained 5. And the master said, well done, you're a good and faithful servant. You're even getting more. The guy with 2, he came back with 2 more. He said, well done. You're a good and faithful servant. The guy who received 1 didn't come back with any more. He said, I was afraid. I was afraid. Fear keeps us from doing a lot of things. It's like, I read a book one time, some kind of mystery something, where this guy, he stuck an injection and it paralyzed somebody and he couldn't move for like 10 hours or something. How scary is that? And that's what fear does to us. A fear of failure paralyzes us. It immobilizes us. So we won't even try. We're stopped because we don't want to fail. And the guy, he said, I was afraid. Now, the parable of the talents is telling us something important, or Jesus wouldn't have told it. And he wasn't saying that it's just he gives us abilities, although he does, because he says he gave it to each guy according to his ability. I believe the parable of the talents is telling us that God expects us, was there one before this? Yeah, the parable of talent. God gives us opportunities. He gives us opportunities to do with what we have. Now, everybody here has different abilities, different experience and background, different personalities. But here's one thing we all have. We have opportunity to do something with what God gave us. You may have different money, different job, but with what God has given us, He gives us opportunities, open doors to serve, to minister, to help. And the second thing is then, in the parable of the talents, God expects us to take advantage of those opportunities. The one who didn't take advantage because he was afraid, he said, well, you get nothing. He was not pleased with the one who didn't take advantage of the opportunity he gave him. He does expect us. It doesn't matter what talents or abilities or whatever you think you have something. We all have opportunities to do something for God. And here's what fear of failure can cause. It can cause pointing the finger at somebody else, blaming. And this is what the guy did. If you read the parable, he said, well, I knew you were a hard master. Basically saying, it's your fault I didn't do anything. And that's what we do. Because we're afraid, or when we do make a mistake, it was her fault, his fault. You're the one who caused me to mess up. I wouldn't have done it if it hadn't been for you. Because we don't want to look bad, do we? We don't want to look dumb. Certainly it couldn't have been me that made a mistake. Fear of failure also causes us to procrastinate. We put it off because sometimes we put it off because we're lazy maybe, but we put it off because we don't want to mess up. We don't want to fail. We don't want to, oh, I would try, but what if I don't do good? So worried about failure that we're paralyzed. And perfectionism, which is a thing with, and now let me just say this, I'm not saying about don't try to do things well. We should try to do it well, but just don't keep on to that nth degree because it's never perfect. Because you're afraid of any little mistake anybody might point out to you. We always have to be perfect, which stops in a lot of people also. Perfectionism. A perfectionist always ought to go with the adjective frustrated in front of it. Because he's always frustrated. Because he can never get perfection, and he also can't get it at anybody else. And perfection often wants others to be perfection. And that ain't happening. So a fear of failure can steal our joy because we don't have the joy of trying new things, of depending on God, of seeing victories, because we're paralyzed with a fear of failure. And that steals our joy. Probably the greatest or most successful, certainly, college basketball coach ever at UCLA, John Wooden said, if you're not making mistakes, then you're not doing anything. I'm positive a doer makes mistakes. Now look around. Made any mistakes in the last 6 months? Not me. Well, then start doing something. Because if you do anything, if you try to invite somebody to church, you'll probably stumble through the words the first time you try it. And maybe call the wrong church or something, or the wrong time. You'll make a mistake. If you try to put something on social media that you thought would encourage somebody, you may put a wrong link or say it stupid. You're going to make a mistake. If you try a new effort, if you try to say, I'm going to sing in church, or I'm going to try to teach somebody, I'm going to try to have fun, you know what you'll do? You'll say something stupid the first time you do it. And you can't let that stop you. A fear of failure and making mistakes. And because then we steal our joy, just huddled in here, doing nothing. I like what I think I have Ray Stedman, two things Ray Stedman said. Live dangerously. Now he's not talking about staying on the edge of a cliff. He's talking about try things. Try this new, maybe you always wanted to do this and then you're always afraid you'd fail. Try it. Try new things. Don't let fear of failure stop you from trying these things. Live dangerously, that if I fail, at least I tried. I didn't sit my whole life afraid I wouldn't fail. Let's try stuff for God, for people, to do things. And it says love dangerously. Because if you love, you will be hurt. Am I wrong? If you love, you will be hurt. You'll be hurt. If nothing else, you'll get hurt because they're hurt. And you can't stand it, what they're going through. And sometimes you'll be rejected when you try to love somebody that don't love back. I guarantee you'll be hurt, but you know what? You love dangerously anyhow, because the worst thing would be to hold that heart in and put it in a little box where it can't be touched. That would be a lot worse. So live dangerously and love dangerously. Go out there and do things, all of us, in spite of a fear of failure. And I have it too. I'm going to tell you real quick, I was going to tell this earlier, two of my worst nightmares. You're getting a vision into my head. I have these about every 6 months. And here's where it goes. I go up and stand at the pulpit when it's time to preach, and I realize I forgot to study. I don't have a message. I don't have anything to say. And this is so real when I'm up there. I'm trying to think of things. All right, what can I come up with real quick? The second one is, sort of like it, I go up there and I'm preaching and people start leaving. Then some more leaving. It's all, these are nightmares. I'm telling you, they're real. What is that? That's a fear of failure. I have it too. I don't want to fail. Well, we can't, you know what? We got to go ahead and step out anyhow. That's what the Master expects. When he gives us opportunity, we step out anyhow to live and love for him. All right, number two, fears related to that, and that's the fear of what non-caring people think. Now, I put non-caring people because I don't want to say I don't care what anybody thinks, because I care what my wife thinks. I care what my kids think. I care what you think. People who care about me are on my side. They're rooting for me. They're cheering for me. They're praying for me. I care what they think. Because they're the people, the ones who are on my side, they've got some insight into me that if they get advice, I better listen to it. What they're thinking, I should listen to that. So I would recommend anyhow, don't say I don't care what anybody thinks. I do care what people who care about me think. But it's those people who don't care about me that a lot of times who we're worried about what they think, whoever they is. We're always worried and letting that stop us. Because, well, if I invite somebody to church, they may think I'm a fanatic. If anybody knows I'm a Christian, you know, they may think bad of me. What did Jesus say? I think I have the verse. Dear friends, don't be afraid of those who want to kill your body. Wow, okay. That's all they want to do is kill you. Don't be afraid of that. They can't do anything more after that. But I'll tell you who to fear. Fear God. Right? Fear God. And we fear people too much and God not enough. And it ought to be the other way around. I don't want to displease God. You can only kill me, buddy. Then you're done. And so, fearing what non-caring people, fearing what people think, is a thing that really can restrain us, restrict us, and really kills our joy because we're always worried about it. Thinking, oh, well, they probably don't like. I only got 4 likes on that post on Facebook. You must not think it was good. I thought it was good. I would have taken it off. I only got 4 likes. You know, we're always worried about what people think. This has been attributed to Dr. Amen. I'm not sure if he's the first one that said it. But he talks about the 18-40-60 rule. At 18, you care what everybody thinks. Do I look good? I wonder if they think I look good. I wonder if they think I'm cool. Is that a word you use today? Do you think I'm cool? We're worried about what everybody thinks about us. At 40, we say, I don't care what they think. Care. And at 60, we realize they weren't thinking about us at all. Why do we spend so much time caring about what they think? You know what people were... Do you think last night people were sitting around thinking about you? Richard Atwood. Wonder what he's... Boy, he's a good... You know what they were thinking about? What am I going to have for supper? And then they're thinking about, why did I eat so much supper? My stomach hurts. They're not thinking about you and me. Unless it's something, now I'm thinking about my wife and she's thinking about me and I'm thinking about my kids and I do think about you because I pray for you. But, you know, the people that we're worried about, they're not even thinking about this. Unless you die and they say, oh, yeah, well, I saw you died. What's for supper? That's the way we are. And I'm not putting off on them. I'm not putting off on you. That's the way we are. But we spend entirely too much time worrying about what they think. We're not even thinking about us. And that stops us again from doing what we want to do, from even sharing joy. We're afraid to get too happy. Somebody think we're silly. We're afraid to praise too much. Somebody think we're crazy or fanatic. And we stop it. Fear of the future, what might happen, the bad things that might happen when I'm talking about the future. We fear the future, and that steals our joy. We're always worried. And so, let's read this verse. Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will bring its own worries. Today's trouble is enough for today, which is certainly true. But we worry about tomorrow. Now, let me say, he's not talking about planning. I don't think planning ahead is good. Jesus didn't say, well, you shouldn't even, don't even plant anything in the spring. Just wait for a harvest. Well, no, he's not saying that. Planning ahead is good. If you want something in the fall to eat out of your garden, you got to plant it in the spring. Okay? If you want something special for a trip, then you got to save the money for it, or for a new car, or for an emergency. He's not planning ahead. Planning ahead is good. Worrying ahead steals your joy. Worrying ahead. That's what he said, the worries. Worrying ahead. And here's what I do well. I think of all the bad things that can happen. Now, if this happens, and then that'll break down, and then another thing will break down, and then we'll run out of money, and then we'll be poor, and then we'll be kicked out of our house, and then somebody won't like it, and I'll get in a fight, and then I'll be robbing banks, and then I'll be in jail. That's how my mind works. And then I finally say, Richard, shut up. Not how long things going to happen, but we worry about the future, and that steals our joy. Worry about all the bad things that could happen in the future, and it steals our joy. When most of, now some of them will bad things happen, sure, but a lot of good things will too. And worrying about it doesn't do any good. Just steals your joy. This is why I say is it optimist or pessimist? Well, if we're going to lean to anything, we lean to optimism, because I say be a realist, deal with the problems we have. I think I have this spelled out. Let me go to the next one here. Don't pretend there isn't problems. That's not the way to joy. Everything's going to be all right. You know, don't do that. Because dreaming your problems away will steal your joy too. Because then you'll wake up, well, we don't have any money for food, you know. So I'm not saying dreaming away. Some people have that attitude. I'm just not going to do anything. It's just going to work out. No, like you do what you can. God gave you 2 hands and 2 arms and 2 eyes and a good mind and whatever. He gives you opportunities. You do what you can. But then you got to trust God. Which is why we are realists with faith. I realistically deal with the problems I have now, trusting that God's going to help me in the future. And so I'm not sitting around worrying about the future all the time. That's stealing my joy. I can't even, it's a beautiful day, and I can't even have any joy. Because fear the future. He provides, God is working in our lives. All right, the fear, oh yes, I want to put this in, somebody put it on Facebook. Toby Max said, sometimes you have to tell the negative committee that meets inside your head to just sit down and shut up. I like that, because that's what I have to do. Got it? Now this is a crazy one, but there's actually a thing called the fear of joy. They got a name for it. It is called carophobia, which is literally, that's the Greek word for joy in our Bible. And phobia means fear. It's literally a fear of joy. Some people are afraid to be happy. You know why? Well, I was happy once, and then the very next day, something bad happened. I know if I get happy, something bad is going to happen. I had a friend, I think I got a picture of beautiful weather. Boy, hasn't it been beautiful weather? I love this time of year. It's been so not too hot, not too cold. We need the rain too. It's been beautiful weather. One Sunday I went in, this is 20, 30 years ago, when it's been like 2 weeks of beautiful weather, and I said to the guy in our church, man, in this beautiful weather, we're going to pay for it though. I know bad weather's coming when it's this good. Thanks, Debbie Downer. Eeyore, well, anyhow. Yeah, bad weather's coming, but it's good now. Don't be afraid of joy and happiness. Jesus said, the thief is one who comes to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. He is all right with you being happy. Did you know that God's not mad if you get happy? I'm going to fix that. Had a good day today, you think, well, I'm God. I'm going to make sure you have a bad one tomorrow. Somehow that's why we act in our head. No. Now, in this world, you will have trouble. I know that. So I'm not saying you won't have anything bad tomorrow, but don't quit enjoying life and being full of joy today. And you know what? When the rain comes, you be full of joy now. So don't be afraid of joy. Jesus even prayed for it. Remember, I said in John 17, I pray for my disciples to have joy. He wants you to have joy. Then the last one is fear of dying. And I'm not going to go to that last picture, Anthony. I decided to change my mind on that. But I just want to end with this one. This is maybe the underlying fear. We probably don't sit around thinking about it all the time. And again, I'm not saying that you don't take precautions about things that would keep you from dying. We're not eager to die. But we don't want that to steal our joy, that we're always afraid we're going to die. Because we know Jesus rose from the dead. He conquered death and said, I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, you're going to be too. So we don't have to be afraid of death and sit around like this all the time, afraid I'm going to die. Be careful. Be healthful. Sure. But don't sit around afraid of dying. If you're a Christian, you're a believer, He's got a place for you, He wants you to go. If you're not, He's got a place He wants you to go, you just got to say yes to it. He's not going to make you go against your will. If you come and say, oh God, I do want to, I know I don't want to live my life without you anymore, I repent of that and the things I did, and I turn my life to you, and Jesus is my Savior and Lord, I want to live for you. You don't have to be afraid of dying, which we're all going to do. All going to do that. And yet, don't have to sit around being afraid of it. And even though there is joy right past that, He'll be there when it comes time to die with us, I believe, through it. And that He says He provides grace to help in time of need. I don't know, and when it comes to that time, He's going to give me dying grace, I believe, that I can go right through it. So don't sit around with a fear of death if you're a follower of Jesus Christ. We're all going to get off this train. We just don't know where we're getting off. But we'll go to the same place.